We're expecting Bob, right, Barb?
Yeah, Bob's doing, yeah, Bob should be, oh, I didn't notice Bob wasn't here yet. Okay.
Yeah. My fault too. Anyway, Al's here. Good morning, Al.
Morning.
We let the surveyors off the hook, although Bob Don's here. That's good because we're going to need him for one vote. And Bob, we'll take that. We can actually do that right. No, we can't. We have to wait for Bob on that.
Right.
We'll have to wait for Bob anyway.
Did everyone have a good Easter?
Yeah.
To
Yes,
break the
thank
ice
you.
a little bit.
I actually took advantage of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and the only thing I did was a timesheet summary and one proposal. Otherwise,
Wow.
I did nothing else. It was
Good.
pretty unique.
Good.
I did get my planting done and all that stuff. Seeds, anyway.
I was gonna say, it's too early to plant like vegetables yet.
Yeah, right. I just put the seeds in for the, the beets and the radishes and things like that.
Well,
We got up this morning in the office, the newspapers were out in the middle of the road. The flag was blown off and broken on the building. So we must have had some pretty good wind here. But now
Wow.
it's cold and dreary.
Some places got snow in the Northeast. I don't know where, but there
Yeah,
was
there
a
was-
photo.
They were saying Northwest. If you look out your window, John, from where we sit, it looks like there's snow on your trees.
No, we don't have any snow.
just
We had a
looks
lot
like
of
it.
rain. We had about 3 inches of rain last night,
Really?
according to the
Yeah.
rain gauge.
Yeah. Our rain gauge showed 1.25 inches here, so it wasn't too bad on the rain. There's Mr. Doan. Traffic, huh?
Hello.
Oh, Bob.
That's a Barbara. Barbara messed him up today.
All right, we're gonna check off Mr. Doan is all present and accounted for, so
Awesome.
we don't
That's
have
all
any
good.
correspondence. We do have one surveying item, which is a corporate practice of surveying, which while we have everybody here for that, we should, if you don't mind, we'll take that one first. And Barbara has reviewed it for Brom Ventures Corp. Out of Westport, Connecticut. And they're looking for the corporate practice of land surveying. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation of our board administrator? To approve.
I'll move that we accept the board administrator's recommendation.
Thank you, Bob. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Robert. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Now, respect for Bob's busy day today, we should move into the minutes from our March 15th meeting.
And
And
Bob
unless
can make
there's-
that, and Bob can make that correction that I, for A1, Bob Don made a
Right,
correction that he was going to complete the survey.
Which I did.
Okay,
And I know that Kathy sent that announcement out to the CAL's membership. So I hope we got a few more respondents to the survey, because the questions are such that if only one person answers it, you would have a limited scope of what that one person believes is important. So I think it's pretty important that other surveyors also participate in that. But with how busy everybody is, I'll be surprised if participation.
But you did respond, you said.
Oh, yeah, I responded. It takes, if I remember right, it takes about 40 minutes to do the.
Wow.
Do the, they call it a survey, but it was interesting. I mean, I found it interesting, at least you get a sense of what they're thinking, areas they're thinking they should expand their coverage in the exam
In
into.
the exam, right?
So,
All right, well, thanks for doing that. The minutes should show that you did respond to the questionnaire.
yeah,
Are there any other corrections or additions to the minutes from March 15th? If not, is there a motion to accept them as presented, or as amended through Bob Don's response?
So moved.
second,
Thank you, John. Thank you, Robert. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes from March 15th, say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And Bob, if you so choose, I think that takes care of all the surveying elements of our current agenda.
I'll hang on a little bit longer
Yep.
anyway.
No problem. I appreciate that. So we should move into our regular agenda for applicants. Oh, there is one item there. We did have the computer-based testing exams. We noticed those who have passed the exams in March and April. A lot of civil, all civil. What we got? 3, 6, 8 applicants for eight licenses. All right, on page 3 of our regular agenda, there was 3 applicants for class 1 exam. I reviewed all 3. There was 1 foreign degree for Mr. Roof. It was a very good evaluation from a Bangladesh education. All actively employed. So I would recommend approval of Bouton, Peel, and Roof. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, John.
Second,
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And John DeWolf reviewed Anderson and Poole for class 1 credit part 1.
I move approval.
Thank you, John.
I'll second.
second,
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor to approve Anderson and Poole for class 1 credit part 1, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I reviewed the next applicant, Andrew Pulick. It's a Wentworth technology degree granted in 2011, so he has the requisite number of years. He's had good experience with PennDOT, an engineering firm, and a Connecticut DOT. So my recommendation is to approve for the exam. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Robert.
I'll second.
Thank you, John. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Bob Doan reviewed the next applicant, Mr. Po Yin Leo, permit class 1 and credit parts 1 and 2, approved class 1 license. I need a little explanation. What does that mean?
What he took the exam in California,
Okay,
and he actually took it. He has 5 years, 8 months experience, and he took the exam when he had 3 years, 8 months experience. But he has good experience and a good education, and I wouldn't hold that against him. So I'll make a motion to approve him. He passed both exams, and the PE was in California.
so the only difference is that according to ours, we would have had 4 years. He took it in California, had 3 years.
Yeah, 3
Yeah,
years, 8
because
months.
California allows that. One of our former employees went to California to take the exam because of the 3-year rule. you know. Anyway, that's good. Is there a second to the motion to approve Ho Yin Lao?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. I reviewed the next group of applicants. The first 6 I'll take, which was GRU through Xi. We had a couple of foreign degrees, 3 actually. 3 of those 6 were foreign degrees, all good evaluations, all currently well employed and licensed. Therefore, I would recommend approval of those 6 GRU through Xi for class 4 reciprocity.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Richard.
Second.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion? Say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, that motion carries. The next one, I wanted to take a moment. I gotta get my notes here for a minute. I'm going to subtract Dennis Braybeck from the next group. Borkowski, Chiluka, and Coyle. Those are all good. 1 evaluation, only 1 model law engineer out of that whole 9 applicants, which was different than most months, but the foreign degrees were well evaluated. And all 3 of those, Borkowski, Braybeck, and Coyle, Borkowski, Chiluka, and Coyle, I recommend approval for reciprocity. Is there a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Thank you, Richard.
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All those in favor of the motion for Borkowski, Chiluka, and Coyle, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. I wanted to just, hang on a minute, I want to get my notes here on Mr. Braybeck. Oh, yeah. There was something, let me just see what I did here. Oh, yeah, this Dennis, there seems to be a gap. He's now apparently self-employed, but there's a gap in what he's been doing. And I just think that we should ask to have that filled in. It goes all the way back to 86 as self-employed, but no representative projects. Just gives a very brief cost estimating, quotations, ammonia refrigeration. I think they should have some more expansion on what he's been doing. It just goes, we don't have any experience after 2013. As I read the application. And then after working for a company back in 2013, it just basically goes, I'm self-employed, project management. And I just think that we should have a little bit more representation of what he's been doing, if anything at all.
Makes sense.
You know, he is licensed in Rhode Island. He was, excuse me, he's licensed in Florida. He graduated back in '72 from Miami. He was a model law engineer, but everything else has been done. You know, every other application seems to go forward, but nothing really describing what he's doing. I think it's just appropriate in this case to ask for an expansion on what he's been doing since November of 13. So is there a motion to accept my recommendation on the case of Dennis Braybeck to expand on the
So move.
experience?
I'll move that.
Second.
Get more information.
I'll second that, Tony.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Robert. Hate to prolong it, but I think that's important in this case, just to clarify a couple of things. So it's been moved and seconded to delay decision on Dennis Braybeck contingent upon receipt of expanded experience since 2013. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing that, the motion carries. So basically, we tabled the review of Dennis Braybeck. The next two applicants, Chan and Greco, and on page 3, and Haynes through St. Cyr on page 4. Oh, excuse me. Well, let's do that. And then Luan through Tamine on page 4, all reviewed by John DeWolf for class 4 reciprocity.
I'm going to move that all be approved, but I just want to note that Keys, I couldn't quite make it out. He has multiple exams. He took the Fundamentals of Engineering in Connecticut in 2001, Principles and Practices of Engineering in California in 2005, Structural in 2009, and then he took the Principles and Practice of Engineering in Massachusetts in 2010, and the Structural in California is listed again. I don't know why he took the Principles and Practice of Engineering again, but everything is fine, so just thought I'd note that. So I'm going to move from Chen to Tamiang for approval.
Okay,
Second,
thank you, Robert. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Anybody that wants to take the exam twice, good. Maybe he took another discipline or something for a discipline-specific license, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
You know, I did have
any-
one of those applications recently, and it was a different specific discipline
Took a
application.
different module.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Correct.
that would make sense. Richard, you reviewed case through Velasquez on page 4 for class 4 reciprocity.
Yes, I just want to make a couple of notes in terms of Haman Eastland. He got his degree in Jordan, but he did have equivalent with no deficiencies evaluation. And in terms of Bradley Shade, you know, I only got his second page of his transcript, so I didn't get the first page of his transcript that said he definitely had a degree, but he had, you know, the second page showed that he had, you know, 132 credits or something, but
Okay.
it didn't necessarily say that he actually had a degree. So I just, you know, so if we can just confirm that. And also Mr. Shade, he only had, I guess he has an Ohio license that expired in December of 21. And I didn't see any other kind of verification that he had, you know, other licenses that were still active. So, I mean, I could take a quick look at,
I can check on that.
okay, but
Yeah,
as
for
long
sure.
as his, he has an active license and you know, the page 1 of his transcript shows he did get a degree. I'll make a motion that we approve, you know, all 9 applications.
Okay,
second,
is there a second to the motion? Thank you, Robert. To approve case through Velasquez on page 4 for class 4. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
aye,
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition.
Should that be subject to confirming that he's currently licensed?
Yes,
That Shade
Yeah.
is currently licensed?
Yes, with the verification of Bradley Shade for verification of current licensure in Ohio.
Okay.
Agreed?
yes,
Great, thank you. Then Robert Doan reviewed Benedetto through Volk on page 4 for class 4 reciprocity.
I'd like to start off with a conversation regarding David Dinsmore. And John, I wish you were sitting next to me so I could show you his evaluation. He has a degree from Iowa State University in industrial engineering. And he took some additional courses from University of Iowa and Des Moines Community College, All those courses were considered in the evaluation. Now, a lot of times I overlook if he's short in general ed, but he's short 43 credit hours in engineering, science, and design. And
Yeah,
and I think that that's enough to say it's not equivalent to a 4-year engineering degree.
I agree, but is the industrial engineering a accredited degree?
It's not, well, I don't know.
Does it say have the EAC beside the degree on the form?
Oh, on his
The whole, that page that is, shows everything.
page that shows everything, no, it's not an ABET.
Okay,
It's
so then he doesn't have a 4-year engineering degree.
right. He's curious thing is he is licensed in 21 states.
Oh,
But I wasn't sure what to do on this one.
What's his area of practice specialty?
His area of practice is he designs what he calls PCR structures, which are PCR rooms, which are the power control rooms. He designs those. It's almost like a module that they use in various size buildings, ranging in size from these PCRs range in size from 120 square feet to 7,500 square feet, according to his experience record. And it looks like he's done them in several states and several countries, several other countries.
The initial reaction would be that is whether or not the industrial engineering degree covers all of the basics, you know, the breadth of education that John is always so concerned about. So I guess the first question to be answered is what John asked, Barbara, is it an ABET accredited engineering degree program? And then next was the extra study intended to get more of those core courses. In other words, if he has a deficiency in the evaluation from the beginning, it wouldn't have been evaluated if it were not unaccredited, right?
Right, correct.
So it would appear that he's deficient in the engineering breadth that we've all been concerned about.
That is my concern, yes.
it doesn't sound like he has the breadth that you would get from a 4-year engineering degree. So I would recommend it not be approved.
Okay, I will take that recommendation and make a motion to that effect. And
I'll second it.
that's based on his NCEES credentials evaluation, determined that he does not have an equivalent 4-year engineering degree.
Right, so he must have known to go for the evaluation at some point. It wasn't done just now, right?
No, it wasn't. It was done in 2014.
Where's it from? Iowa State?
Yeah,
Okay, because it is a technology program, so.
yeah, industrial technology at Iowa State University.
Is it
He
an
earned
A?
a Bachelor of Science.
Aha, so it sounds like he doesn't have the 4-year degree that we've been requiring, so he doesn't meet our requirements.
I'm checking to see if their technology program is accredited, so. I can look that up.
And he, in addition, the applicant attended the University of Iowa in 1989 in Des Moines, Area Community College in 1992 to 1993. That was before his industrial technology degree, which was 1996. But the total combined coursework, he only has 5 credit hours in engineering, science, and design.
That's not acceptable.
No, I don't think it is either.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to deny based on the lack of a qualifying engineering accredited degree. All those in favor of the motion to deny David Dinsmore reciprocity, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
The remaining 6, I make a motion to approve all 6.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Al.
I've one quick question, and then I have a request. One question was on Volk. His license expires on at the end of April of this year, but he is currently licensed, so.
Right. I think that's noted. All those in favor of the motion to approve Curtis Benedetto, Helton, Petrusek, Siegler, Tantawi, and Volk for reciprocity, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. So we will advise Mr. David Dinsmore that his education background does not meet Connecticut's policy standards.
Okay.
Then on page 4 of our regular agenda, we have a list of applicants, Bayeto through Moreno. And on page 5, Razak through Villette for class 9 license. All those in favor, or is there a motion to accept or
So
approve
moved.
approve the license?
So
Robert,
moved.
thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard.
Hey, Tony,
Yes, sir.
can I add John Squiat to the agenda?
Yes, please. That was the
It was
supplemental
tabled
this morning.
from last month.
Right, and that was in the category of class 4.
Yes,
All right. Let's finish the motion on class 9. All
okay.
those in favor of the motion to approve class 9 license for Bayeto through Moreno and Razak through Villette, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. Is then, Robert has moved to add an applicant that was tabled from last month's meeting, Mr. Swiak, to the agenda. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Al. So you want to fill us in, Bob?
Last month, I felt that his application was lacking because he did not describe the disciplinary action that was taken by several states. And it started in California, where he prepared a site plan in, I think it was Monmouth, California, but he did surveying work and structural work with designing a retaining wall. Retaining wall was backwards and on neighboring property. But he was disciplined for it. He was entered into a stipulated judgment in 2019, 3-year probation, which will end or ended in March, I guess. But the states of Oklahoma, Nevada, and Texas also took action primarily because of his activity on this project in California. And he
As I read
has,
it, one of the states said because he didn't report it, I think in Texas, right?
correct, yeah.
So,
And in Oklahoma, he was reprimanded because he did work representing a company, and the company was not registered in the state. But he paid a hefty fine in California, over $10,000. And he paid $1,000 fine in Oklahoma, and so did his company. So now that he has described this activity and the discipline associated with it,
and he had to take an ethics course.
yes, he had to take ethics course, and there were a couple of other courses, Tony, in the stipulation from California that he had to take. He had to review the California laws and board rules, the ethics course, as you mentioned, and I don't know if there was one more. But he has to check in with the California board every 30 days or something like that. But I think the discipline is, even though it recently ended, I would still make a motion to approve him for class 4, I guess. He has been, I think his error of ways has been
Recognized.
duly processed or whatever.
Okay, I agree. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. All those in favor of the applicant Sweak, I don't have his first name handy here, I apologize.
John,
John, okay.
John, yeah,
It's been moved and seconded to approve John Sweak for class 4 reciprocity, duly noting that discipline imposed on him in several states has been appropriately addressed, and he's actively practicing. All those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
thank you very much, guys.
thank you.
Good research. Then we have on our regular agenda, the approval request for the corporate practice of engineering that Barbara has duly investigated and considered to be in accordance with our regulations. B+AC LLC, E3I Engineers, Inc., LJB Inc., Lloyd Engineering, Inc., LXC Engineering Group, LLC, MSK Engineers, Inc., Spec Consulting, LLC, ST Hudson Engineers, Inc., Trilon USA, Inc., WNA Engineering, Inc. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation of our board administrator that all these firms are duly licensed and represented?
So move.
Thank you, Robert.
Second,
Was that Richard? Thank you,
Yes.
Richard. Okay, who was it? It was
Right.
Richard.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. All those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. On the regular agenda, we have requests for reinstatements, 2 of which were reviewed by Richard Sweezak, Mr. Tim Geary, lapsed in 2010, and William McNary, lapsed in 1994. Each has been licensed in another state and has not signed any documents in Connecticut.
yes, I did review those, and they did provide a letter that had indicated that they did not sign any, projects that were designed in the state of Connecticut. But I do want to make a couple of statements in terms of Mr. Gary. He was fined and disciplined in Oklahoma for, I guess, submitting drawings where in the state that he was not registered in. And I guess he paid his fine and he was disciplined. So I'm not sure exactly what date that happened in terms of, there wasn't a time that, the year that it happened, but it did happen sometime in the past. And in terms of Mr. McNary, he actually has his degree from the University of Colorado in 1981. And he took the fundamentals of engineering and the principles of engineering in Colorado in 1980 and 81. And I guess at that time, it was a state applied test. It wasn't the NCEES. And I think that when I took it many years, just a few years before him, I also took the state of Connecticut test. And I guess for some strange reason, they don't think it's an equivalent to an NCEES test, because in his credentials, it doesn't say that he, has an acceptable, fundamentals of engineering exam and a professional engineering exam passed. But, recognizing that, at that time, there was no national test to be taken, or, very slim pickings of a national test to be taken, that, I don't think that we should, hold it against him that he has taken a test in Colorado and that he did pass it. So in light of those two discussions, I'll make a motion that we approve both reinstatements.
To continue the discussion, I agree with you. If he has the engineering degree and he was qualified by the standards in effect at that time,
Correct.
we can't penalize him, I don't believe. And
Correct.
Connecticut had a state-run land surveying exam. I mean, you can't go back. So I would support that. So there's a motion to approve reinstatement of Geary and McNary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any
I took-
opposed?
Oh, sorry. I took the exam in spring of '74 in Connecticut after I'd moved here and started at the university. And it was a national exam, but I think the exam was prepared nationally for the PE, not locally.
1974 is when Connecticut started administering the NCEES exam. Prior to that, it was all Connecticut. Colorado and Illinois were the two states kind of held out for a while before they joined to give the NCEES exams. So that's probably another reason why Colorado kind of held off before they joined doing the NCEES exams. But Connecticut, we were starting NCEES in 1974.
Okay.
In 1970, what, 4?
74.
Yeah.
Okay, then I did lie. I did take an NCAA test. I thought it was just the state of Connecticut. I was just a naive engineer at that time.
That's
It's
okay.
like-
74 was our first administration of the NCEES exam.
Yeah. Point me to the room and I'll take the test.
That's right.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. Bob Doan reviewed Boyd and Osmond for reinstatement. More recent lapses, but nevertheless licensed in another state, paid all the back fees. Has not been, no, Mr. Boyd has not been
Not,
licensed,
yeah.
right?
he's only licensed in Connecticut and it expired in 2016. He has not signed anything. So, yeah, and he has submitted his application and I assume paid his fee.
$2,200.
So all he needed was 200?
2,200.
Oh, 2,200, yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
2194, but
every year.
whatever, close enough.
right.
Well, what a good man. Thank
So
you.
I make and for Osmond, he didn't sign anything and he was registered in New York. So I make a motion to approve both for reinstatement.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Al. I have a question. So why did Mr. Boyd let it lapse from 16? Or why did he reinstate? Just if he offered any indication.
All he, his only written explanation was, I, John W. Boyd, have not used my, the authority of, he says moo, he meant to say my, Connecticut professional engineer seal during the time the seal was determined to be enacted. He
Okay,
did-
so it
does
may
not-
very well have been working for a company, says, I'm not gonna pay your application fee, so we can work here and you can do the design, but you're
Yeah.
not gonna sign anything and therefore, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
And I asked that question only because I have one for discussion later on. That'll be worthy of discussion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve Boyd and Osmond for reinstatement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries, and that completes our regular agenda items. And moving over to our supplemental. I reviewed the first applicant for Class 4 reciprocity, Mr. Eric Schallert, currently licensed in Iowa. Iowa State education at 89. Good experience, and I would recommend approval. Is there a motion to accept my recommendation for Mr. Schallert for Class 4 reciprocity?
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Richard.
I was waiting for Al. We've been
Yeah.
hogging the spotlight here, and I'm like, Al.
All those in favor of the motion to approve Eric Schallert, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. Bob Dunn reviewed Beardmore, Bishop, and McConnell for Class 4 reciprocity. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
They are all model law, and everything's appropriate for all three, and I make a motion to approve.
Second,
Second.
I'll second.
thanks, John.
Al, you gotta jump faster.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. I was
All those
waiting
in
for the- I
favor?
was waiting for the next group.
All right, you get the next group. All those in favor? All the names I can't pronounce, you're gonna do? Oh, my goodness. All those in favor of the motion to approve Beardmore, Bishop, and McConnell for Class 4 reciprocity, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. The next group was Agajayan, Ahern, Guerrero, Lasden, and Palmy, reviewed by Richard Swezak for Class 4.
I did review those. They are all model law, and they had the adequate experience, and I'll make a motion that we approve all 5.
I'll second.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion, seconded by Al, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing on that, motion carries. And lastly, we had 2 more applicants for Class 4 reciprocity, Cooper and Dumas, reviewed by John DeWolf.
They're both fine, and I will move approval, noting that Dumas has about 10 pages of experience prior to the degree. I mean, just little one-liner things of all kinds of stuff.
Busy girl, busy girl.
Yeah, everything's fine.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll
Second.
second. Go ahead.
Jeez, sorry, Al.
Not a problem.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We have 2 reinstatement requests. One for Paul Detterling, his license lapsed in 2020. If I remember correctly, it went to junk. But nevertheless, I find that his application is in order for reinstatement. He did list the jobs that were that he signed on, which is kind of funny. He had a job up in Darien, he had a couple in my neighborhood. He did a bridge for Greenwich, Connecticut. I mean, at some point, you wonder how that happens. You know, Stanford, Japan Landing, all these local town jobs, and nobody noticed. But nevertheless, it was lapsed in 2020, and therefore I would say we recognize that he is duly qualified and should be reinstated. That's my recommendation. Is there a motion to accept that recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Robert. Second? Thank you, Richard. All those in favor of the motion to approve reinstatement of Paul Dieterling, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Now, the next applicant I prefaced a moment ago was that Charles Johnson has completed a new application. He has not been continuously licensed in another state, and he paid all the back fees, but he has not signed or sealed any engineering documents. The applicant says in his application that let me put it another way. For 10 years, he was a teacher ending in 2017. And at that time, he retired from teaching and moved to Nantucket, where he took a job as a systems engineer, wastewater operator for the town of Nantucket. So he says, I've been working as the engineering compliance officer for the department for 3 years and would like to have my PE licensed in Massachusetts. In order to do that, he needs to reinstate his Connecticut license in order to apply in Massachusetts for comedy. So the problem I have, and just I wanted to have that discussion, is that he graduated BS in engineering from Lehigh in '79. He apparently worked until 1999, at which point he took a teacher certification, and he says that he had been teaching high school math for 10 years. He retired and took a job in 2017 in Nantucket, which means that from in 2007, he was up till 2007, as I read it, he was as an engineer, working as an engineer. But what we don't know is what he was doing, as an engineer. My question is, should we evaluate, or what did he do before he became a teacher? And how valid is the experience between his retirement as an engineer and his teaching? If it were New York, he would have had to have continuing education. Connecticut doesn't have any continuing education. We have no way of knowing what is he doing, what was the practice. Should we reinstate without at least knowing what he was doing as a practicing engineer? Even though he's going from whatever engineering he was doing to an operations component of a treatment plant. Just wanted to get some input there.
I think we could ask him.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to say, look, what were you doing as an engineer prior to that? If you were doing slump tests, that's one thing. If you were designing and working, I can understand the dedication, let's say, to retire from engineering, go back to teaching. Let's do that. That's a good thing. But at least I think we should ask. I don't know.
So
To know
let's-
whether or not he actually practiced for 30 years. We don't know that. He says he graduated. I don't really know what he did after he got his degree.
And we don't know what he's done since 2017 either, do we?
Well, he's been working as a wastewater operator for Nantucket Sewer Department since August of 17. And now an opening in the department came, which requires a PE. So while he was once licensed here in Connecticut, he wants to reinstate. I just think it would be appropriate anyway. Oftentimes we we kind of joked at it. If the guy was a baker for 30 years, that doesn't really help us, does it? But he said he was engineering and he had been licensed. I don't know when, let's see, his license lapsed back in
2010.
in 2010, yeah.
And he was first issued the license in 1984.
In one sense, I don't have a problem with reinstating it, but I just think that it would have been appropriate to let us know what it was that he was doing, although he did it since '84. You know,
So I will make a motion that we ask him for the experience portion to be
yeah, just
filled
what
in.
was generally what was the experience before your license lapsed? That's all. I think it's due diligence that we should ask. That's all. Is there a second to the motion?
Second,
Thank you, Richard.
I got a curious question on that. He's going to use the license for reciprocity in Massachusetts. Isn't there going to be a time period, 2-3 years for reciprocity in Massachusetts? So he's not going to instantly be able to get his license in Mass, I don't believe. At least from a legal viewpoint, you wouldn't, attorney.
In other words, apparently they aren't recognizing the fact that he was licensed as an engineer. In other words, he didn't go through an application process in Massachusetts. They're just saying, prove to me that you were licensed and we'll give you reciprocity without talking about it. We don't know that.
So his ancient part that you're asking for information on is what they're going to carry for him in order to give him a license in Massachusetts.
You would think. In
Yeah.
other words,
so in
I think we're
that
saying the
case-
same thing. They would evaluate his experience.
Right. And then we should clarify it, definitely.
Yeah. So we're asking to do the same thing that Massachusetts, you would think, would do. Massachusetts is going to rubber stamp just because Connecticut said you were licensed. We don't know that, but we can
Yeah.
assume that. I do agree it's appropriate to ask, that's all.
I agree.
So there's been moved and seconded. We've discussed it. All those in favor of the motion to request an experience record while actively practicing engineering. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries.
So we're kind of asking for time from what, maybe 1984 until.
But
he
just
was
generally, Barbara, some of the experience records that the people provide are very brief, the type of work
Right.
that you were doing. So it just means, were you an inspector, or were you actively involved in design? And I know that, let's just say he was a structural engineer, and it certainly would translate into operating the sewage treatment plant, perhaps. But it's just something that I think we should do. He's asking us to support his application to Massachusetts.
Right, exactly.
And the question that Al raises is appropriate. Why don't you just ask Massachusetts to evaluate your experience? In other words, he was licensed. He has all the qualifying NCEES elements, I assume. And if he did have the license, then we must have approved him in '84. So under those circumstances, it doesn't seem like a big deal to do it.
I guess I was just asking for the time frame of what time you want.
It doesn't, it's just like a brief discussion, a brief description of your engineering experience prior to your license lapsing.
Oh, okay.
In other words, he went
26
and taught
years.
for 10 years. He didn't do any engineering for 10 years.
Right.
If he was,
Prior to it lapsing and going into.
Yeah.
it. Okay.
for all we know, he had experience in the design of sewage treatment plants, but that's not our concern right now. Really the question is, if you have all this experience, why don't you add it to your application to Massachusetts, knowing full well that you were licensed
Right.
legitimately in Connecticut? So he's looking for us to do the rubber stamping for Massachusetts, and yet they should be asking the same questions.
And Massachusetts also may want you to be currently licensed in your initial state of licensure, which is this was
Right.
his initial state, because he
Okay,
did
so
sit for
that's
the,
another condition that he needs to qualify, and therefore,
right, he did sit for the PE exam here in Connecticut.
okay.
Okay.
So
Okay,
Massachusetts requires, say that again now, Massachusetts requires,
most
you-
likely to have a current license in your initial state of licensure, which was Connecticut. I'm assuming that's why they're asking for him to reinstate his
well,
license.
yeah, then again, he probably went through the process in Massachusetts, which he doesn't say that to us, other than to imply it. He goes, I need to reinstate my Connecticut license in order to apply in Mass under comedy. So
Right.
he's probably been thwarted a little bit, so let's ask him to do, well, our part.
Okay,
So it's been moved and seconded. I think we approved it. All those, we have discussed that, so.
Mhm.
That motion carries. Now we have two more applicants for reinstatement that Bob Doan reviewed. And that was Patrick Bird. His license lapsed in 2010. He has been continually licensed in another state. And then Joshua Chapman, his license lapsed in 2012. He has also been continually licensed in another state.
I make a motion to approve Bird. Chapman did sign and seal
we did.
construction documents
Oh, my bad.
from 2012 through 2015. He signed documents according to his application.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, I would make a motion to approve both for reinstatement.
So he signed documents between 2012 and 2015
Yep,
while he was working elsewhere,
he
but
was,
signed for Connecticut projects.
yes. He states that not, he was working, he's licensed in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, DC, South Carolina, Georgia, all up and down the East Coast.
I assume he could get confused. That's all. I just like a conscious,
Yeah,
when you have so many, he doesn't pay attention. I understand that.
right, he says, not realizing my license had expired, I signed sealed construction documents pertaining to multifamily apartment housing projects in Connecticut. Most of the work occurred in 2012, 13, 14, and 15.
And again, it's important for us to reinstate during those periods because it establishes our belief that he was qualified. So you can't avoid your responsibility. That's what I think is important in these issues, right? You
Yes.
document what you did, you admit that you signed them, you know that you did, and therefore you're responsible for them. You can't run later on because you weren't licensed. You shouldn't have been, but you can't hold me accountable. All right. I would support it. So we want to see him. We want to recognize that he was and is qualified to do what he did. That's what's most important.
Correct.
Is there a second to the motion to approve Bird and Chapman?
Second.
Thank you, Al. All those in favor of the motion to approve Patrick Bird and Joshua Chapman for reinstatement in Connecticut, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Let me just make a note here. Okay, I believe that completes our agendas for today.
A motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Al. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
How many more meetings, Barbara?
For me,
Yes.